Philosophers talk to our times, a future history. Marx follows up on Spinoza's great idea about desire. Desire, Spinoza pulls out of any need for simple physical existence. You don't just desire your wants, you desire your joys. You have a body of joy and pain that not only impels you into a feeling of existing within time, but populates that the time with desire. Desire is that which inhabits pain, which inhabits joy directly, that augments itself within that joy, that yearns to yet more joy, and flees from pain. It isn't desire then is no longer just the stuff of your humanity. On the contrary, for Spinoza, most desires are caught up with inadequate ideas, with ideas that relate to things that are beyond us. We are caught then in the nexus of desires that bind us to the physical world. He will say desire is just a physical force like lightning, existing as we exist in part of nature, as part of nature, a pulse, and not something peculiar to the human soul. Marx pulls that argument to the full level of science fiction. And in many ways, for me, Marx is a great writer of near science fiction. I don't mean that to belittle him at all. I mean it as a compliment. In looking towards a revolution that hasn't happened, in looking towards a world and the life to come, he's always writing science fiction, because he is writing the way that technology is going to shift our world. Often with Marx, he works better when you get away from the mere propheticism through which he can often be interpreted, and understand him as a master of the art of using philosophy to explode into constellations of science fiction, worlds that could be. And his theory of desire, which I think is in chapter 15 of Das Kapital at its finest form, is one of the great theories of humanity, because he builds on that Spinozian idea. The idea that desire doesn't directly relate to your humanity, but rather pulls you out of humanity and is caught up as a physical force like the wind. And Marx says, and that is all the more true, of course, within industrialization, because within the industrial world, within the world that science creates, the very fact that desire doesn't directly relate to human need and is merely a physical force, is translated into its full supreme power. Our lust for shoes or ice cream is turned by mighty machines that move by themselves into a veritable force of nature. Our desire then has a right to punch where and when it will in this fallen world of ours. It becomes akin to lightning, or storms, or hurricanes, able to transform and transcend the world. In the end, it is fully incarnate. It becomes a fully incarnate God, able to see itself within the world and make the world within its own image, as desire pulls the world hither and thither, as we demand more and more outlandish things. Technology, Marx says, allied with desire, is a dangerous force, for it has all the power of an Olympian god, and all the conscience, and all the lack of immediate consequence. And so, now of course Marx wants to wake up from such fierce delusions, and there's a bit of him, contra Spinoza, that remains humanistic, in that he wants to assert human dignity against desire. Now even here you need to be careful. He's not arguing then for some sort of, atheist humanity, some sort of humanist vision where we assert the human soul against the way that desire is being transcended by technology. so much as through the revolution we become in control of the way that desire is being manipulated. So that after the revolution, a human could be anything they like. A builder, an architect, a fisherman, a critique, and yet all and none of those things. Having tried that lifestyle, I always make this quip at this point. I have actually had days that have been like that. And do you know the main feeling you get? It's not human freedom. It's utter exhaustion. But that's another matter. But the point about humans after the revolution is not that desire shifts, that it comes rooted within humanity. Marx, after a certain youthful flirtation with the atheist Hegelianism, abandons such ideas of simple human spirit. It's more that we get to desire our own desires. It's closer then to common notions. It's closer to the idea that in desiring our own desires, we become master of our own destinies. And if our desire is a physical force, that physical force is no longer a blind scream across the lightning strike of creation. It becomes something that we actually turn on and turn off. And so Marx, of course, in many, many ways, portrays our world in the here and now. He portrays a world then where desire is being increasingly pulled away from anything to do with humanity, is increasingly being turned into just a physical force, or increasingly, of course, an electronic force, an algorithmic force, as we all desire across the algorithm, as the algorithm tries to merge itself with our human desire and shift and pull us thither and hither. A dark world, then, where we lose sight of the very possibility of desire, as capitalist overlords wish to be able to turn it on and turn it off, so that we follow what they wish us to desire and nothing more. You see it very clearly in things like the shift towards nationalisms, which support the hierarchy and the establishment. And they do it with obviously that faux language of we're the people who fight the establishment by strangely supporting it. Desires. People are groomed then into certain sets of desires. Their desire becomes mingled with the algorithm, so that it becomes something for others to turn on and turn off. In the darkest possible rendering of this Marxian future of ours, that world where ideology is utterly controlled by a techno-billionaire caste who are looking to master it. And even when it rises, as fury rises, be able to direct that fury in certain directions, pull the sluice cases, treat it genuinely as if it was a physical force, and push it somewhere where it is harmless to them. So that desire becomes something that is either managed, directed, or when it rises like a hurricane, poured elsewhere. No wonder then they've lost sight of the fact that the world is warming up, that it didn't have scope for more Olympian gods than those that already were, and that humans couldn't just usurp godhood. And therefore, the consequences of us demanding our desires, our physical forces, is to change the very nature of the physicality of the world in such a way that we might not be able to exist at all. Such a desire is far too scary. Such a desire shows the limitation of this theory of human desire, where desire is just a physical force without consequence or cause, and has to be dismissed, ignored, denied. Well, because it would challenge the very algorithmic control of desire. And of course here then we have the new contours of a new sort of revolution, where in order to be able to control our desire, as communists would, we also have to control that desire within the context of a world that may or may not be able to support it. Which is why, if Marx was writing now, he would absolutely be obsessed with ecology and with matters ecological, and how capitalism, desire and ecology are caught up within the same crystal. the crystal that demands revolution, even as that revolution is being directed elsewhere, pulled apart by algorithms, even as it has been ridden as a numerical force by those that control the number streams. And he would be trying to always pull those desires back and show that the unity isn't now based on a humanity that needs to gain control of its desire and then lose itself in these desires, needs to learn to desire its own desires, which is of course a beautifully Hegelian as much as it is Spinozian concept. It must now not just desire its own desires, it must desire those desires that the world can allow for, that can exist within the world that we exist in. And so that the unity doesn't lie in anything like humanity or anything like desiring our desire, but rather in the context of those desires that can be permitted within a planet that is finite, and all that stuff. And he would be looking exactly at how the finitude of the planet and the raging of human desires are in a dialectic that has a peculiar time frame. Within the Marxian time frame, it would all the system had an inbuilt limit because there was always only a certain amount of human labor that could be sacked. But now the new limit, of course, is the possibility of human existence whatsoever. And he would no doubt be writing about the spectre of not so much a revolution, but Armageddon that hangs over humanity. That fear that we're all going very fast to the precipice. And yet, of course, as our desires are controlled, as our desires are being controlled, as they've become physical forces, been plugged into machines, usurped by algorithms, we have no ability then to act against that rational fear that we all have for our existence, for our desires are endless being subverted, pulled elsewhere. For Marx, then, the battle of now, the battle of this particular future, is that battle of desire. Pulling your desires round, desiring your desire and desiring it as a way that will fit within the wider framework of a possible existence for humanity, a possible existence for the continuation of that desire. We might have become, in our lusts, forces of nature in ourselves, but we have to understand ourselves as part of that nature, and not merely as Olympian gods with the right to punch where and when we will in a finite world. The future that Marx would write for us now would be dark and would be difficult as difficult as it was in the 19th century. But of course it is a future that he'll never write, that we can only look at his work and go, oh yes, he would have probably said that. It's a future that we are destined to live, for evil or for good.